Here's what's happening in Golden Bear athletics. The KU women's soccer team earned a spot in the NCAA tournament as the 5 seed in the Atlantic region, finishing with a 12-6 mark before NCAA play. The Golden Bears made it as an at-large team after losing to Westchester in the PSAC tournament. KU bowling continues its great season by finishing second in the first NEC conference meet. Overall, the Golden Bears went 6-3 and now own a 32-10 record overall. They are in Millsboro, Delaware this weekend for the UMES Hawk Classic. Women's basketball began its season last weekend with losses to West Liberty and Glenville State. Natalia Lee averaged 16 points per game to lead the Golden Bears. The men began their season last night with a road game at Goldie Beacom. And finally, KU volleyball finishes its season today against Westchester. For daily updates and information about the Golden Bears, log on to kubears.com. Our first guest this week is Zach Fleming, who is a senior cross-country runner from Emerald, Pennsylvania, a leisure and sports studies major. And Zach finished in 6th place in the NCAA Atlantic Region Championships on November 9th to qualify for the NCAA National Championships November 23rd in Spokane, Washington. First of all, Zach, congratulations on the honor of getting to qualify for nationals.
Thank you.
You were telling us before the interview started, 1, you've never been across the Mississippi, and 2, you've never been on a plane. So how excited are you to head to Spokane for this?
I'm very excited. I just got to make sure to drink a lot of water so I don't get...
You're trying to avoid dehydration, obviously.
Dehydration, yeah.
Is it something where the time change is a concern for you?
No. My coach, Coach Dodds, he's a pole vault coach. He used to be an Ironman. He just warned me of all the possible side effects and told me to just drink up, and the time effects shouldn't be major.
Take me back to the beginning of the season as you get ready for your final year here at Kutztown. How much of a goal was this to qualify for nationals for you?
At the beginning of the season, it was more of a kind of dream. I thought it was in the cards maybe. There was a possibility, but at the beginning of the season, we were just worried about like time goals. Like my goal was to break 32, and I did that by almost a minute, and I was hoping to get top 10 at regionals. That was the goal. And that might have gotten me into nationals, but I wasn't really a major concern at the beginning of the season.
So to qualify now, what does it mean to you personally?
It means the world, because qualifying for nationals kind of I was used to qualifying like provisionally in track and field. I've done it since my freshman year, and I'm used to not going when that happens. So qualifying automatically was a big thing for me because I haven't been to nationals yet in my 4 years.
So you're kind of the lone wolf now, the last guy standing. Are your teammates, though, helping you as you train for nationals?
They're on their 2 weeks off right now, so I'm training up by myself right now.
Is that a difficult thing, to be out there by yourself?
Yeah, it got a lot colder as soon as regionals got over, and it's kind of been hard training by myself, yeah.
When you look at what you're up against in Spokane, what are your goals now that you've made it to nationals?
Well, my coach told me top 40 is All-American, so that's obviously the goal. Time-wise, if I break 30-30, I'd be happy with any place, really.
When you go to the regions, it's kind of the same group of runners you run against in the PSAC championships. Was that some sort of an advantage for you feel?
Yeah, because I knew who I was supposed to go up against. I knew who was going to beat me, who was going to be up there, and who I needed to stay with to get All-American and nationals, so...
I mentioned you're a leisure and sports studies major and a senior. What are your plans after graduation?
Get a master's in sports psychology and then hopefully coach college athletics.
You mentioned psychology. It's such a mental aspect as well as physical being a cross-country runner. How are the two tied in for you?
Well, freshman year, my mind wasn't a whole lot there. So senior year, I'm used to everything. I've got the great mindset, and it helps out a lot. Like pushing myself through races.
Well, it's the first time in 20 years a KU runner has accomplished this. We congratulate you, and we wish you the best of luck in Spokane next weekend.
Thank you very much.
Zach Fleming, senior cross-country runner from Emerald, Pennsylvania, our guest. He'll be in Spokane in the national championships for cross-country next weekend. When we come back in the Gold Rush Report, we'll talk to Steve Murray, the commissioner of the PSAC. Welcome back to this week's KU Gold Rush Report. I'm Steve Degler. We are pleased to be joined by the commissioner of the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, Steve Murray. Steve, first of all, thanks for taking the time.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity.
I guess the first question for folks who maybe don't know, what are your responsibilities as commissioner of the PSAC?
Well, I kind of get everybody pointed in the right direction, the same direction, not necessarily the right direction, the same direction. So 18 universities, 23 sports, there's a lot of different pull and tug, and trying to to kind of get everybody headed in the same direction. So we oversee in our league office all championships, all officiating, all scheduling, all awards, all public relations kind of activities, of course, meetings. And we work with the institutions with regards to NCAA rules and compliance as well. So, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. They sometimes call commissioners cat herders because it's like everybody's going different directions, just trying to keep everybody on the same page.
Obviously, you don't have as big a staff as some of the Division I conferences, and you're dealing with the personalities of presidents and athletic directors and coaches. Is it tough to get everybody going in that same direction?
It varies on issues. I mean, you never know, but I would say this, that in the last 10 years, our league has really found its niche. We've done a great job with trying to be consistent across the board in all of our sports. Philosophically, we have, although there's been a lot of turnover in the last few years, we have an excellent board of directors, which is the 18 university presidents. We've met last 2 years on a retreats, and they've had, given me some direction of where they want to go. Of course, I've been in the league office for 17, so kind of know what the scope of the league is. But it's not as bad as you think. I mean, there's a lot of consensus building. I think our folks really do get what Division II athletics is about, and they are always very student-athlete centered, and I'm very proud of that fact.
When you look at your job, what would you say are the best parts and maybe the more difficult parts of what you have to do?
Well, the best part is just getting to the opportunity to work with student-athletes. We obviously don't get as much of that in a conference office, but we have a couple opportunities a year, and then getting to go to the events and see that what you've worked at trying to create for the league has come to fruition in the championships events. The tough part is trying. There's always a resource problem in the schools. Always struggle as economically right now has been a tough time for them, and trying to figure out keeping things going positively in the same direction, but knowing that there are limited resources is probably the unfun part of it, because a decision over here may affect somebody else, and there's a variety of institutions in our league too, so that not always easy. An easy decision is not always easy for all 18, and that's kind of hard to sometimes explain to one or two institutions, hey, this is in the best interest of everybody, even though you may not feel it right now.
The PSAC, as you mentioned, now at 18 teams. How would you describe that process of adding schools outside of the PA state system of higher education?
I think it's been great. Coincidentally, right before we did it the first time, now 6 years ago with Gannon and Mercyhurst, the presidents actually had me. The presidents at the time had me do a retreat for them the summer prior to that, and we talked about some future long-term issues for the league, and one of those was membership, and they were very supportive of the idea of looking different than the state schools, and what that might be and how that might, because every conference in the country has a variety of publics and privates associated within their league. So we had a great conversation about it, and then about 6 or 8 months later, by pure coincidence, it's kind of developed, and it was a great opportunity. Our presidents lead that discussion, as that's a very strategic decision, so our presidents lead that discussion. Both times they were very involved in that process and led it and handled it through a committee with themselves and did a great job with it. So actually is more seamless than I think a lot of people think it is. And I think a lot of my colleagues around the country make it worse than it is. I think it's a pretty simple process. If it works, if it fits geographically, if it helps you schedule, that's what makes the most sense usually.
We're visiting with Steve Murray, the commissioner of the PSAC. I would imagine you're pretty pleased with the performance of your student-athletes in the classroom and the community as well.
We are. Most recently, we were. It was just announced that our student-athletes raised more money for Make-A-Wish than any other Division II conference. Division II is the leading single donor for Make-A-Wish around the country, and the PSAC leads that group of Division II student-athletes. So what our student-athletes do in community service and community engagement is phenomenal at our institutional level. So many of our institutions, as you know, are large parts of their community, and I think that relationship building is very important to all of them. Academically in the classroom, we are near the top, or at the top in graduation rates, academic success rates. Over 35% of our student athletes achieve 3.25 cumulative GPAs, and I think that speaks well for, like I mentioned earlier, the balance and the attention to the student-athlete portion of their lives. So our schools are very proud of not only what we do on the field. Just last week, we had 3 NCAA team tournaments announced, and of the 15 positions available to PSAC teams, 12 of them were taken by PSAC teams. So we're very proud of how that worked out for us.
And finally, Steve, what are the future goals for the conference?
I think probably just being steady in that process. I mean, I don't think I think a lot of what we're going to do is probably focus internally about how we do things, making sure that we are as efficient as possible financially, so that it's not a financial burden on the schools to be members of the league. But also, secondly, I think you're going to see a little more of maybe branding. How do we present ourselves publicly? This year we're dabbling. We have 4 conference championships on television. Today, the Bloomsburg Slippery Rock football game is being broadcast on PCN. In a couple weeks, the volleyball championship will be on TV, and then the basketballs in the winter will be on TV. So you'll see probably a larger move for us in that exposure and branding process for the league.
Steve, we appreciate you taking the time. Continued success.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Steve Murray, Commissioner of the PSAC, our guest. Also thanks to Kutztown cross-country runner Zach Fleming. That'll do it for our final KU Gold Rush report of the season. I'm Steve Degler. Second half between Edinboro and KU comes your way next.